right, I'm showing 5:30 Mountain Time, 6:30 Central. So welcome everyone. Prairey Walkling, SDSU Extension Master Gardener Field Specialist based in Rapid City. And this evening we have a special webinar to meet and greet our new SDSU Extension Horticulture staff members, Robin Buterbaugh. I said that right, didn't I? Okay. And Sydney Trio. And so just a bit of housekeeping, this session will be recorded and the recording will be made available. And for those of you joining us live, if you have questions, you can type those in the Q&A box, and that's at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, you might need to expand your screen view, and we welcome those questions from you. And the chat is also open if you want to drop a question in there. So we're going to start with Robin tonight. Sorry about that. And she recently started for a new role at SDSU. She's not a stranger to SDSU, but she started a new role as a SDSU Extension Horticulture Field Specialist based in Brookings and Sioux Falls. And Robin was born and raised in South Dakota, grew up in an environmentally conscious gardening family. She's been growing a vegetable garden for over 20 years and became interested in permaculture about 10 years ago when her brother lent her the book Gaia's Garden. Am I saying that right? Okay. By Toby Hemingway. And since then, she's been incorporating permaculture techniques into her regular vegetable garden and has expanded into permaculture design and forest gardening and received her permaculture design certificate in 2017. One of Robin's primary areas of interest is working with youth and community gardens. Robin returned to SDSU to get a master's degree in natural resources management, focusing on integrating native plants into community landscaping, and also started her own ecological landscape design and consulting business, the Wild Edge LLC. And she volunteers on the Brookings Sustainability Council. In her free time, she likes to go disc golfing with her two sons and work in her garden. Robin loves vegetables, flowers, native plants, and all things plant related. And she loves to bring all those things together to help create landscapes that are beautiful and beneficial. So welcome, Robin.
Hey, thank you, Prairey, and it's great to be here. I know I've met a few of you in the past, however many there are of you that are on this webinar throughout my time at SDSU, but I'm really excited to get to know all of our master gardeners and to be working with all of you in the future. So with that, I will just get started and start sharing my screen and tell you a little bit more about myself. Hey. So if everybody can see that all right.
Yep.
As Prairey mentioned, I just started in January as an extension horticulture field specialist. And it's just a role that I'm super excited about just because from the time that I went back to school for my natural resources management degree, and even before that, I was just telling a friend of mine at a farmer's market one day, I was like, you know, I've been doing all of this community stuff, but I just really wish that there was a job out there that was like community related garden education and outreach. And then not long after that, I actually realized that there was, and it was extension. And I think I'd always had the idea that extension was more ag related, but it was really cool to find out that there is actually a lot more to it than that. And so here I am. And I'm just going to go through a little bit of that journey. So today I'm going to talk first about some of my graduate projects, and then I'm actually going to back up and go into a little bit more of my background, kind of where I got started, and then continue on to my future work with extension. So my graduate projects were in natural resources management And as Prairey mentioned, my main projects were related to integrating native plants into community landscaping. For that, I worked with the community to implement 4 ecological landscape design projects, as well as provide education and outreach as to why they're important. So those projects were at the Agricultural Heritage Museum, where I redid the landscaping in front of that building, the city sign at our Southbrook softball field here in Brookings, the city county government building here in Brookings, and also a bioretention basin at the Dakota Nature Park. And as well as working on my graduate projects, I was a part of the SDSU Native Plant Initiative. My advisor was Dr. Laura Perkins. So I got to do all kinds of fun native plant related things, including help with all of the growing of the plants in the greenhouse, working at the plant cells, coordinating with community members, greenhouses, setting up the plant sales, just answering questions from community members about native plants and how to integrate them into their landscaping. So I really got a lot of experience just kind of doing some of that education and outreach with the Native Plant Initiative. So the projects that I worked on here are just a couple of pictures of them. The Ag Heritage Museum and the Brookings Southbrook sign were projects where I just was doing kind of a more naturalistic prairie planting style. And these have taken place over the course of the last 3 years. So in some instances, there are some gaps where the plants are still filling in, or I maybe had to replant them because of some rabbit pressure or environmental issues, especially at the Brookings Southbrook sign. They had landscaping rock there, which I wasn't really didn't know about ahead of time until I was getting ready to plant. So that kind of affected a few of my planting decisions for plant choices. And then I also did 2 bioretention basins. And with those, I actually really became interested in stormwater management. I never knew that I would be so fascinated by stormwater until I met Dr. John McMain, who also is an SDSU extension specialist. But I did incorporate bioretention basins into 2 of these projects. The one was at the Dakota Nature Park, and that one has just been planted recently, so it's barely gotten started yet. But probably the most fun one, the one I'm the most proud of is actually at the Brookings City Government Building. And that one I worked with Ag and Biosystems Engineering and the Landscape Architecture Department to do all native plantings and then to provide education to the public and also work with some different groups to make the sign that is in front of that planting. And so those were a lot of work, but they were really rewarding. And I did actually learn a lot through the process. You know, I actually started planting before I'd taken most of my classes. So there's probably things that I should have done differently, but it was a really great experience. And I was really grateful to be able to be part of the Native Plant Initiative and part of SDSU Natural Resources Management. So that's all I'm going to say about my projects now, but if there's any questions later, I'm happy to answer more about those. So now I'm just going to go into a little bit more of my background. And so, as Prairey mentioned, and in my bio, I grew up gardening, foraging, and spending a lot of time outdoors. This picture on the left is one of my parents. And if you can't tell, they grew up kind of in the early 70s. They were kind of back to the land or hippie types. And my mom probably wouldn't be very happy that I'm showing this picture, but she's the one that put it on Facebook. So I guess that's what happens when you put stuff on Facebook. And then this picture to the right is of their garden. And so they had a garden as long as I can remember. Unfortunately, one of the first gardens that I remember is one that they had made out of railroad ties, which is definitely not something that you want to do at this point. But we also just spend a lot of times outdoors, camping, foraging for asparagus and stinging nettles, and just quality time out there and being very environmentally focused as well. And so this picture on the right is their current garden where they live in Custer. I grew up in Redfield, but they moved to Custer. So they had to adapt a whole new set of gardening challenges when they moved to that side of the state. From the time that I graduated from college and had space, actually even before that, I had a home garden. This is my old garden when I lived out in Bushnell, South Dakota. I had a lot of space there. I started off with it being tilled every year, but eventually I just worked to make these more temporary raised beds just so that I could incorporate more ecological practices. About this time is when I read Gaia's Garden, as Prairey mentioned, and that just changed my entire perspective on gardening. It was just kind of an aha moment where you realize that, wow, you can do things that are productive for people, but you can also do things that are good for the environment, and they can actually all work together. And it was really hope inspiring, actually, just because, there's a lot of negativity that we hear about in the world today, environmentally and otherwise, pretty much everything. But I would say that learning about permaculture was something that actually made me feel empowered and able to kind of like effect positive change in the world. So I wasn't yet at that time actually quite on the gardening path that I am now. My first career was actually as a microbiologist and then eventually a senior scientist at RTI in Brookings, South Dakota. I was a veterinary microbiologist. And so I spent most of my time looking down a microscope or working in a biocontainment hood. And so I got to a point where I'd been doing more work in the community and I was interested in plants, and I just really couldn't foresee myself working for another 20 years as a microbiologist in a lab, even though it was really interesting and I enjoyed it. So that's when I started to do more community related projects, and I took my permaculture design certificate course. And after that course and the 2016 South Dakota Local Food Conference, where I heard Sean Sherman speak, and if you're not familiar with him, he's the sous chef who has a restaurant in Minneapolis, but was from Pine Ridge. And after that, I just was overcome by the overwhelming desire to spread the word that we don't need turf everywhere. So initially, I was all about growing food because I looked around at my communities and I looked at all these spaces in hospitals and nursing homes and churches and all of these areas where we just have grass and it just gets mowed and takes a lot of resources. And so I was like, we could be growing food here. And I really enjoyed all of the local food conferences that I went to. I would highly recommend anybody who hasn't been to one to go, because they're really inspiring to hear about all of the different local food activities that are happening around in our state. And as I mentioned, I got my permaculture design certificate, but I didn't really know if that was enough to kind of like help me feel confident enough to start talking to people and saying, hey, maybe you should do this in your yard. So I felt like I just needed a little bit more legitimacy. And that's when I did a lot more volunteering as well. So after that first 2016 local foods conference, a friend and I approached the Boys and Girls Club about starting a garden club. They'd kind of had a little garden club before, but it was pretty informal. And then we also met with Brett Owens of the SDSU Local Foods Education Center. So we partnered with them, and we had this amazing garden club for 3 years until COVID happened. And we had an annual garden and we had a perennial forest garden, kind of based on permaculture principles. And it was probably one of the most fun youth gardening experiences I've had. It was just so much fun to see those kids just loving to get out there. They weren't always like necessarily gardening. Sometimes they were just sitting on the picnic table complaining that they were hot, but it was still great to just get them out of the building and outside. And we even had a farmer's market the second year. We had enough produce growing that we were able to do that and raise a little bit of extra money. I also took a rain garden workshop with Dr. John McMain, and he's the kind of the one that actually got me into the program that I was in for natural resources management. I worked with him on a project at the Boys and Girls Club, and he invited me to look at the landscape architecture senior design projects for the rain garden that they were going to install there. And I watched those senior landscape architecture design presentations, and I just thought to myself, I can do that. Like they're not necessarily even thinking about what plants they're planting. They're just putting something out there. So there's no reason why I can't do just as good as them. So I talked to John about it, and he recommended getting in touch with natural resources management. And so that kind of started the ball rolling with my projects with Dr. Laura Perkins and native plants, and using native plants in stormwater management. At this time, I was also living at Good Roots Farm and Gardens, and so they had educational programming that they were doing as well. The Upward Bound group was a group that came in 2 summers in a row, a couple different a few different times throughout the summer, and I was able to help out with that group. We built a rocket stove. If you're not familiar with a rocket stove, it's just a very high efficiency stove that can be used in a lot of places for cooking or for heating your garage, or even some people even use it in their houses. And so with that, we did some foraging and we found nettles and catnip, and we made tea on the rocket stove. So that was a lot of fun with that group. Also, I started a landscape design business just because I was doing some of these community projects, but I also just felt like I needed more hands-on experience with native plants in order to be able to feel a little bit more comfortable. So I worked on some different projects within Brookings for some different homeowners, and that was a really fun time. I still technically have the company, but now that I'm an extension agent, I'm not doing any of that consulting anymore. But it was a lot of fun, and it was great to be able to get a lot more native plants in the ground. I also have been a volunteer for the Brookings Sustainability Council, and we've done a number of projects, some urban pollinator projects, working very slowly on the community food forest, no mow May, some urban beekeeping, and then my bioretention basin was also part of that at the city government building. And all of those projects helped Brookings become the Conservation Educator of the Year for the South Dakota Wildlife Federation. So I was really kind of honored and grateful to be able to be a part of that as well. During this time, while I was a grad student working at NPI, I was actually also working at Blue Dasher Farm at Ecdysis Foundation. If you're not familiar with Blue Dasher or Ecdysis, it's actually a regenerative agriculture nonprofit that does research on how different management techniques affect outcomes on regenerative versus conventional farms. So they're really looking at the data to be able to show, what the difference is and how it affects the economics of the farm. And so I got to work with a really fun group of people. The staff was awesome. They were so much fun to work with. And I was able to go on 2 different field sampling trips, one each year of the almost 2 years that I worked there, one to South Dakota rangelands and one to Nebraska. And I worked in that capacity as both lab manager and an agroecologist at Ecdysis. So I really gained a lot of interesting large-scale agriculture experience with regenerative management, cover crops, soil health, water conservation, all of those types of things, which fit right in with kind of the big picture of what I wanted to do. But I really have always been kind of more passionate about the smaller scale, the homeowner and the community side of things, rather than kind of like the big farm side of things. So while I loved the time there and I learned a lot of different techniques and information and met a lot of great people, I did want to kind of bring it back down into the community education and outreach side of things. So with that, that's when I began my extension work. So I graduated in December of 2023, just a month or so ago. And that's when I also was done working at Ecdysis. And so in January, I started working as an extension field specialist. So I'm just going to talk about a little bit of what I do for extension so far. And granted, I've only been working here for just about 2 months now, so there's still a lot that I'm learning and a lot that I have yet to work on. But a few of the things that I'm starting with right now is just general horticulture support. So that includes answering questions if people call or email me about any number of topics. It could be about their lawns. It could be about native plantings. I've had a lot of questions about how to install pollinator gardens or native plants that are good for West River, and just working with the general horticulture team on whatever else that they might need. And then, of course, one of my focuses is also going to continue to be native plants and pollinator gardens. So I will be continuing to partner with the Native Plant Initiative at SDSU to kind of provide education and outreach. Still will be working a little bit with them on the plant sales and providing some maybe education at the plant sales as well. And then potentially working on more of a large scale kind of pollinator or native plant initiative for communities and homeowners as well. That would be a goal of mine. I'm also working as supervisor of the garden hotline. So the garden hotline is now has staff year round. So Sydney, who you will hear from shortly, is our garden hotline staff for the off season. So like October, November through March. And then we have 4 other hotline staff in different locations. One is Pierre, Aberdeen, Rapid City, and now Sioux Falls. So we will be able to be taking questions from the public through that garden hotline. I'm also still really interested in and hoping to continue to work more with community, youth, and school gardens, as well as like community permaculture gardens or forest gardens. So that's an area that I've answered some questions from different organizations or people within the communities, but don't have any main projects going on with those types of gardens yet. But I'm definitely interested in doing that here in the future. And then, of course, working with the master gardeners. So really looking forward to getting to know everybody more in the Master Gardener program. I'm going to be kind of going through and helping and taking the Master Gardener classes as well, just so I can get familiar with all of the different curriculum here this season. And yeah, I think that's what I'm doing now. I'm sure there will be many more things that I'm doing. So what I really love about Extension is that it lets me merge my love of native plants, my love of the environment overall, and like soil and water quality, habitat, and then just general gardening into a focus on ecological design. And so my goal as an extension agent, and this is kind of a busy graphic, but it's kind of like the mind map or the brainstorming that I did to kind of map out how everything that I'm working on, how I see it fitting together. So, of course, as extension and a land grant university, using the science and research that our institutions have available, and really putting that into this idea of a community landscape ecology mindset. So not just necessarily focusing on only vegetable gardens or only pollinator habitat or only stormwater, but how can we merge those things together? How can I kind of merge all of those things together so that when I'm helping people or coming up with projects or program ideas, I can really focus on all of those things together. And so whether it's for homeowners, whether it's for businesses or organizations, or even the city government, all of the different community gardens, and then how I relate to public inquiries or write articles or, work with the master gardeners, my focus is really on kind of bringing those things together so that it can really be focused on ecological design practices, whether it's on a small scale in just a raised bed garden or whether it's in a larger kind of community landscape. So and I also would be remiss if I if I didn't mention the SDSU Native Plant Initiative plant sales. So I have here our current plant sales that we're going to be having. We're planning to have one in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The date is to be determined at this point, but we will be having 2 in Brookings at the Garden Discovery Festival on May 19th, and then again at the Garden Party on August 3rd. And then we'll be having 2 sales out in Rapid City and Spearfish on June 1st and 2nd. So we're really excited about that, to be able to have plants over there for all of our West River folks. And then another one at the East River Nursery. And of course, if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact Dr. Perkins at the Native Plant Initiative. And then there's a QR code that links to all of their different social media. And so with that, there's my contact information. And if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. You can keep my screen up for a minute or we can move on to, just let me know.
Thank you, Robin. Sorry, I don't see any questions yet. But I feel like they haven't really announced all those plant sales yet. So you got to hear it here first.
Yep. Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
And the plant list is coming out soon. Dr. Perkins just told me this week that they're just about going to be releasing that plant sale list, which I know is like eagerly anticipated. At least I know I was always super excited about what are the plants going to be. So that will be coming.
And can you still do the ordering online?
I think so. I will confirm with her, but I know we did the last 2 years. And so I would anticipate that they will be able to do that again this year. Yep. It won't be up and running until probably mid-May. Usually they like to wait until after that first plant sale at the Garden Discovery Festival and then kind of get an idea of the inventory after that. And then they open it up.
That
So
makes sense. From Jenny, she said, I love that you're interested in working on food forests. Very cool. Would love to tour one and have one close to us out West River. Do you
okay.
know of any?
Well, I think Spearfish has one. I don't know if it's highly publicized. I'm not sure where you're located, Jenny. But I know a couple years ago,
Hester, I think.
Spearfish had one. Okay. And my parents live just west of Custer, so that's kind of cool. Well, not just west. They live like 26 miles west of Custer, but anyway, so Spearfish, I believe, has a food forest located near or at their community garden. Maybe somebody, if there's a master gardener from Spearfish, can let me know if that's true or not. But that's what I heard. And then for anybody in the Sioux Falls area, there's actually a really cool, pretty well established food forest in Laverne, Minnesota. It's the Prairey Ally Food Forest. And that one has been going for a few years now. Kim Rockman is the kind of the director and manager of that food forest. And I would really encourage anybody who's interested to go there. She gives a great tour and she's a really great advocate for permaculture and for community food forests as well.
What was the name of that one?
Prairey
Laverne?
Ally
Oh, okay.
in Laverne, Minnesota, and it's a project of Project Food Forest. So there's a website and a nonprofit called Project Food Forest, and that was the original organization that helped the Laverne Food Forest get started. So there's some information about lots of food forest information if anybody's interested to look up Project Food Forest.
All right. Connie has a question. Connie, I can just let you ask it while we figure that out. Cindy Burris says, yes, the food forest is next to the community garden in Spearfish. So correct about that. I didn't know about that either. So we're learning all kinds of things tonight.
Yeah. Well, if you're interested in starting one in Custer, I would be happy to happy to help work with you work on that project.
Oh, okay. No question from Connie. And Joel Price says, welcome back to Brookings.
Thank you.
And he's the president of the Brookings area Master Gardeners.
Okay. All right. I'm sure I'll be meeting you and seeing you in person here sometime shortly.
Okay. All right. Well, if you think of a question for Robin, you're going to stay on, aren't you, Robin? So you can ask her at the end. And we have Sydney coming up next. Hey, Sydney.
Hello. So I looked at all the participants here today, and I have met some of you through the Master Gardener trip in Peru. So hello, it's nice to see you all. But there were a lot of people I haven't met yet, so I'm excited to kind of introduce myself tonight.
Yeah. And I can read your quick bio while you get that set up. So Sydney is our new SDSU Extension Horticulture Assistant, and in addition to the Education Coordinator at McCrory Gardens. And she didn't tell you all about herself, but she graduated from South Dakota State University in May of 2022 with a BS in Horticulture and a minor in Sustainable Local Foods. And while going to school studying plants, she also worked at McCrory part-time, where she gained hands-on knowledge about many of the plants there. And she connects people of all generations to plants through tours, presentations, garden events, and other outreach. So, thanks for being here, Sydney.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So like Prairey said, I'm the McCrory Gardens Education Coordinator and SDSU Extension Horticulture Assistant. My real name is Sidonia, but sometimes I go by Sydney, so either one works. Go to the next one. Okay, so tonight I'll be talking a little bit about me, some of the things I did growing up, and then some of the experience I have, and then what I'm currently working on and hopes for the future. And I like to use a lot of pictures. I'm a very visual person, so there'll be a lot of pictures here. First, before I do what I do for work, these are some of my favorite people. Two of my favorite things are going up north and spending time with family. So the first picture is my youngest nephew when we were on the lake. And then the second picture on the bottom here is at my sister's wedding with my family. A lot of people think my sister and I look alike, but if you know our personalities, I'm the cooler one. And then the top picture is my boyfriend, Jake. He's pretty cool. And then the fourth picture is my childhood best friend. It's kind of cool that like my friends are all like growing up and getting married and stuff. So that's pretty neat. And then the last picture is of my parents' dog. Apparently when I left for school, it got quiet around the house, so they got a dog and they keep her on their toes, and I taught her well. So growing up, I wanted to be a ice cream truck driver. After seeing one on a family trip in Maryland, I would hear the ice cream jingle go down the street, and I would just get so excited. So anytime there's ice cream involved, I'm down, I'm there. So that started my dreams. But I grew up in a small town called Mapleton in Minnesota. Here's a family picture. I'm the one in the lime green. So it's an older picture, and a lot of my cousins are married and have like 2 to 3 kids now. So it's just grown and grown. But a lot of the people in my family are either farmers, teachers, or nurses. So with that, I do have a cousin who kind of was all 3 of those in one. And he is my Y. This is my cousin David. He went to SDSU as well to study horticulture. He graduated in 2001 and then started his landscape company. But he unfortunately passed away in 2006 due to a snowmobile accident. So he's just kind of the reason why I do what I do, and he kind of inspired me, and I look up to him. So it's pretty cool. He also was portrayed for having a funny sense of humor. I always remember the story of one time he was going to a potluck and had to bring a dish to pass. So he brought a potted cherry tomato to share with everyone. So yeah, he's just a fun person to look up to, and yeah. Also following what he did, he was super good at FFA, so I'm like, I'm gonna try FFA. So my first 2 years in high school, I did ag issues. We talked about different topics within the agriculture that were kind of up and coming. And then my last 2 years, we did nursery landscape, and that is where I really got connected with the plants. What we would do is we would identify a bunch of annuals, perennials, trees, and then we take an exam with a bunch of questions. But I got to do it with all my friends, so that was also fun. But we got first place, this picture on the right, that's first place at regions, and then at state, over here, we got 5th place. So that was a lot of fun. And then my junior year of high school, one of my childhood best friends and I and my dad, we toured SDSU, And after the dairy bar, I was sold because ice cream again. But I decided to go to SDSU, and that was honestly the only place I looked at. And I'm so glad I did. Starting right away, I started going to the Horticulture and Urban Agriculture Club meetings, just to get really involved there, and that has been so much fun. My last 2 years, I was the vice president and got to help with planning a bunch of the meetings. And it was so much fun to meet everyone that was also interested in plants. So, yeah. And through the Horticulture Club, I heard about this opportunity to join MOX, which is the Mid-American Collegiate Horticulture Society. My freshman year, we went to Colorado State, and then my sophomore year, we went to University of Wisconsin River Falls, and it's a bunch of horticulture students from all the different land grant universities in the Midwest. So we had those two, and then there was like NDSU, Iowa State, Penn State, yeah, a bunch of different colleges. But it was kind of like FFA in high school, but a way bigger plant list to identify, and we had to use scientific names. So this kind of is fun, and yeah, we got to tour all the different facilities at each of those colleges and see their greenhouses. And then I don't know if any of you, this picture on the right, have met Owens. He used to be a instructor at SDSU, and he taught many of the Master Gardener trainings. He is known as the pumpkin guy. And on our way to Colorado, we passed this Pumpkin Creek sign, and he immediately pulls over and turns around, and he really, really wanted to get a picture there. So that's that picture. So right after my freshman year, I started working at the Mary Jo Wagner Arboretum in Sioux Falls, and I was a summer camp assistant, so I got to kind of learn how to work with the kids some more and helping plan the programming for that. And that is actually where I first met some of you Master Gardeners there. There's some raised beds there, so I still remember some of you today. And then my sophomore year that summer, I started working at McCrory Gardens, just doing the basic maintenance of the grounds, like the weeding, pruning, mowing, watering. I also got to help plant some, and then I stayed there part-time ever since I graduated. So a lot of my hands-on experience has come from McCrory Gardens, and it's been so fun. But we had to do an internship class, and in the section where we had to write, like, what is your dream job on this picture right here, very first thing I wrote was extension/outreach. So it's really cool to be here today and see that kind of work out how it did. I also took my Master Gardener training in 2020 when it went online for COVID. But one thing I would be interested in knowing is if any of you have taken the Master Gardener training at by the time you were 20, and how many years, so then I can beat you for the longest time as a Master Gardener. And then with that, I graduated in May of 22 with a horticulture degree and a sustainable local foods minor. I became the education coordinator and horticulturist at McCrory. And then about a year and a half later, thanks to the determination of my boss, Lisa Marotz, and the collaboration with Extension and Carla, we had this idea to do the position that I'm currently in as a horticulture assistant. So one of the things I have been doing and will be doing is planning educational events. So if you've ever heard of Discovery Festival, Garden Discovery Festival, Garden Expo, Insect Festival, Moth Walk, and Giggles and Ghouls. We typically have quite a few 100,000 people show up or hundreds of people show up for that, and we often have a lot of Master Gardener plant sales and a lot of Master Gardener volunteers help with that. So those are always fun to plan, and also on the days of those events, it's just a blast. Another fun thing I get to do is outreach. I get to go into some schools and teach them about plants and get their hands planted in the dirt. And then they also get to come to McCrory and visit, and I get to give them a tour. I also get to kind of travel and do some presentations as well as workshops. But I get to reach people of all ages. So there's elementary through middle school, high school. There's even college classes and a bunch of Master Gardener groups and events or groups out in the public. So that's a lot of fun. One of my favorite things, something that I've just been passionate about, is the vegetable garden here. I get to help plant it and maintain it as well as harvest it. A lot of times we have these, the group from the Great After School Place. They will come twice a week in the summer, and we get to do fun things out in the gardens. But my favorite part is when we get to bring them into the vegetable garden and they get to kind of see all the plants growing, and then we get to harvest it and then wash it, and then they get to try a bunch of the produce. But another thing we do with all our produce that we harvest, we take to the Brookings Backpack Project. So it's a great way to be involved in the community and kind of help make a difference as well. So like Robin said a little bit earlier, I'm doing the garden hotline in the off season. So I'm the one currently taking all the calls and emails, and that has been super fun. But you might also see me in the future on some garden hours and the Master Gardener Lunch and Learns, and even in some articles that we've been working on. So that has been a lot of fun. And then I'm also involved in the South Dakota State FFA Floriculture competition. Thanks to Dr. Christine Lang. She brought the competition here about 2 years ago to McCrory, and that has been so fun just because I love doing it growing up. So now I get to help be a part of that planning for that, and it's been sweet. And then the Local Foods Coalition, this last year was my first year helping out with that, and I got to help kind of start the youth track for the Local Foods Conference, and that was sweet. And then the South Dakota State Fair Horticulture team, I got to judge the cut flowers and floral arrangements there. That was pretty cool. And then lastly, I help out with the Horticulture Skill-a-thon, the 4-H competition. It's kind of like FFA, but a little bit younger, where the kids get to identify all the plants and take an exam for that. So those are some of the things I help out with. All right, so for the future, many of you on here tonight might be in this picture, and you went to Peru with us, so we got to go in December of 2023. So we have been talking, and I get to announce tonight where we are thinking about going, and we're going to go to Patagonia. So it's kind of by like Chile, and it will be a local foods and wine tour. So Prairey kind of asked if I could share some of that tonight. And I was thinking maybe I could do a whole another presentation just on our Peru trip, because we did so much and saw so much. So that might be for another time. So looking into the future, some of the possibilities, kind of looking maybe at going to grad school. I'm not 100% sure yet, but that would be pretty cool. And then one thing I really, really want to get going is the Junior Master Gardeners program. That will be a goal of mine. And then hopefully one day I'll get married, I guess. My boyfriend just has to ask first. And then I specifically want to live in a gray house with some land. I've been very blessed to have Recurry Gardens to work with and try out different plants, but someday I hope to have my own. And then lastly, I might not drive an ice cream truck, but I still get to make people happy. So if you ever want to call me or email me or come visit me, here's some of my contact information. Yeah.
Sydney. Diane Vanderland says hello.
Hello.
And, and Don Davison and Connie Group want to commend you on a great trip to Peru.
Thank
And it's exciting that you announced the next location tonight.
Yeah.
And Jenny wants to know, did you get your bowls from Peru set up in your office?
I do not have them set up in my office yet, but that's a goal.
You might have to
little,
explain to the
yeah, so a little
to us
backstory
about
on
the
the
bowls.
bowls. So it was a tradition there for people in Peru to have two bowls on top of your house. And it also happened to be my birthday during that trip. So the travel company got me a little gift, and it was two bowls. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. BULLS, bowls?
Yes.
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 Okay. And okay. I see some more in the chat here. You'll have to send us a picture of the bowls, I think, so we
Okay.
can see them. From Leanne soon. I think we are so blessed to have Sydney and Robin to share their knowledge and passion for gardening with all master gardeners. Thanks, Leanne. And from Brenda, she'd like to hear a little more about junior master gardeners.
Yes. So no official plans have been started yet, but there's been a lot of talk about it. And so we don't know much details now, but hopefully it's something we can implement in the future. We just got to think about a lot of different ideas and put them all together yet.
Could there maybe be a partnership with 4-H?
Yes.
You
Yep.
can yeah. Talking with them a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be great. From Jeannie Fuller, she's asking, what is a great way to take care of fungus gnats? And I'm having that problem too, so.
That would be a really good question for Amanda, the entomology specialist. I don't know much about fungus gnats, but we could look into that.
Yeah, I have this yellow sticky paper, which catches them, but you know, they're still there.
I was
Yeah,
just going to add about fungus gnats. Has
yeah.
anybody tried growing butterwort little plants? They're a little plant and they're carnivorous and they've got sticky leaves. And supposedly, if you have a bunch of those in and amongst your indoor plants, they will like to eat the fungus gnats. I had one
Ooh.
for a while and it caught a couple little fungus gnats, but it was so small and I think I let it dry out. So I think it didn't make it, but.
That's a fun idea though. Are they hard to find?
I think I found one in Sioux Falls at one of the plant places in Sioux Falls. Yeah.
Oh. So yeah, any other questions for Sydney or Robin? Got a few minutes left here. And I did put a couple speaking engagements that we're grateful that they're going to speak at some Master Gardener events coming up. I think they'll both be at the annual update in Watertown. And so those events are Robin's going to be speaking at Ready, Set, Grow in Watertown on square foot gardening, and that's on May 4th. And then Sydney's going to speaking at Spring Fling in Miller on McCrory's latest and greatest. Plant recommendations on April 6th. Anything else exciting coming up? Garden Discovery Festival.
Yep, Garden Discovery Festival will be on May 19th. It's a Sunday. We're excited for that.
Anything for you, Robin? Anything you're looking forward to?
Well, it'll be a fun, busy spring with all kinds of events and activities. I know we've got a lot of Master Gardener events that I'm looking forward to going to, the Minnehaha one as well. I'm not speaking there, but I'm just going to be attending. So it'll be great to meet everybody who's down there. And yeah, just getting out and about and starting to get to work.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's we're so excited to have the garden hotline open all year round and to have all the positions hired. So please help us get the word out about that resource that we have. And okay, from Kathy. Yellow sticky traps, thank you, will catch the adult ones, but you need to stop the laying of eggs in the soil. Using vermiculite or sand on top of the soil helps that. And neem oil to water also helps. Use neem oil to water, sorry. All right. Those fungus gnats.
Oh, I guess I could mention also that, we'll be starting Garden Hour again in May. We've got another, I think we might have another one in April, but then it'll start more regularly in May. And then we'll also be having the Garden and Yard newsletter coming out starting in March. And that'll be bi-weekly or twice a month. So.
Yeah, I believe there is one more off-season Garden Hour in April. Are either of you on that one?
I am.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What are you guys be talking about? Or you're not sure yet?
No. I'm not sure yet.
We got some time, but yeah. And just a reminder too, Master Gardener training is still open as well. So just help us promote that. It's open until March 10th. So. Well, from Jenny, she's so happy to welcome you both and get to know you. If either of you can make it out to the Custer area, come visit her garden, and the coffee's always on.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you. Well, I go out there because my parents live out there, so I don't get out there probably as much as I'd like to, but I definitely love to visit that area.
Yeah. And yeah, I know it's a busy time of year for the Master Gardeners. Gardening in the Black Hills started tonight. The classes started tonight, and then they have Spring Fever on Saturday. So yep, and then yeah, lots of events going on. Thanks to all the Master Gardeners for all you do. And thanks Debbie. Debbie's glad to have both of you join SDSU Extension, and we're so glad to add to the team and be able to work together for the Master Gardeners and everyone else in South Dakota. So all right, well, I don't see any other questions, so I think we will call it a night. But thank you so much for your presentations tonight. And I think, if you need to get in touch with Robin or Sydney, I think they both had their emails on their slides and happy to share those if you need their emails. So, all right, thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.